Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today I'm reviewing the Feelgrounds Move. So 3 things to like with this model is number one, their comfort. This is one of the more comfortable barefoot shoes I have worn over the last year for training and daily wear. And so what makes this shoe so comfortable are 2 components in my opinion. Number one, the upper is wicked soft and this boot has a nice amount of padding, so it hugs the foot really well. And then number two, we have a rounded sole, so it's very easy to wear in different settings. It feels very natural to wear all day. I have traveled in this shoe for long spurts to the airport, wearing them all day out and about, and then to the gym. So I have really enjoyed the comfort of this model, and I do like that the insole gives you a little bit of cushion in the shoe as well. The second thing to like with this model is if you are somebody who lives in a hotter climate, I think you'll like the knitted upper in this shoe. It has this Tinsel lyocell component to it that helps it breathe, but then also kind of not smell as bad. I have worn these shoes a lot of times without socks, and thus far they have yet to stink, and I have dumped a lot of sweat into them in hot Austin and Chicago over a few weekends of debauchery, but then also training and whatnot. So the upper, I think, is a big hit in the shoe. It's not the best for training, and I'll talk about that in a second, but honestly, I really do like the stretch of it, the feel of it, and the breathability of it, and how it just sits on the foot. If you wear socks or not without socks, this shoe works really great. The third thing to like with this model is the simplistic construction. I think if you're somebody who wants a barefoot shoe for training, but then also wearing casually, and you want that do-it-all shoe, and you don't love a ton of branding, this would be a really good option to look into. With this shoe, you have some Feelgrounds branding back here on the heel, which is very minimal, and then up here on the tongue, you have a little tiny FG, but overall, that's it. And so if you're somebody that wants a simplistic or just basic colorway shoe for training and whatnot, this shoe can fit that void really well. And again, like I've worn these shoes out casually with jeans and whatnot when I was bar hopping, but then also to go train and deadlift in. So I like the range that I get in this model. But now let's talk about a couple of cons that I have with the Feelgrounds Move. So 2 cons that I have with the Move is number one, in the gym, so these have been great for more casual sessions, and if I'm doing conventional deadlifts and whatnot, they've been fine too. But my issue with them is they're not gonna have the upper security for any form of really power focused exercise, sumo deadlifts, or basically anything where you need more lateral support in your shoes or support up here at the end of the toe box. This knit has a lot of stretch to it, so you do get some spillover in this model. And so that said, I would say if you're investing in the Move, just make sure you understand where they're going to excel in the gym and where they'll start to fall short. If you are an athlete and you like to do a lot of plyos and you need a shoe to really lock down your foot, this is not going to be your best bet in my opinion. There's a give and a take here with this upper construction, quite literally. The second con that I have with this shoe is there's no tongue gusset, which I think is good for giving high volume feet a little bit more functionality and allowing the laces to have different levels of tightness to keep this comfortable, but that does mean the tongue can slide at times. And so I'll typically wear these looser and the tongue will start to slide laterally over time. Not the biggest deal, but I will have to adjust every once in a while. Now, if you tighten them up, that should be not an issue because you do have 2 loops here for security. But if you have a lower volume foot and whatnot, and you're kind of swimming in the shoe, this tongue can move at times, especially if you're doing anything laterally. So just food for thought there. Not the biggest deal regarding their overall hindrance in performance, but if you're OCD with your tongues and you like a tongue that stays in place and doesn't move, this might not be your best bet. All right, now let's break down the performance of the Feelgrounds Move. So I'll discuss how this shoe does for lifting, cross training, short runs, and daily wear. In the context of lifting, the shoe works for certain workouts, but then it starts to fall short the moment you put any form of stress into the upper, which I mentioned in my cons. And so for context there, if I'm doing anything like a split squat where I'm more static and I'm not doing any form of dynamic lunge movement, or if I'm doing a conventional deadlift and I'm not really sumo deadlifting, or if I'm doing any form of squat where I don't have a ton of slant, so I'm not on a slant board, the shoe does an okay job. What I've noticed though is for sumo deadlifts, for any form of movement like a lateral lunge or even a Cossack squat where I can sometimes press into the lateral side of my shoe, I was having spillover. And so I think that's one of those things with a shoe where I like that they give you the shoe that has a much more comfortable upper, because I do think it's a little bit more of a counter to some of these uppers on some of the barefoot shoes that are a little bit more rigid, that are a little bit more tight. So it gives you range there, but that does come at a cost with their lifting performance. Like this would not be my go-to barefoot shoe for clean and jerk, snatches, basically anything where you're gonna be a lot more dynamic with your feet and where you're gonna be moving weight. So all that to say, if you wanna lift in this shoe, just keep in mind that if you're a lot more static with your stuff, doing machine work or just static strength work with free weights, this shoe will work, but they will have some limitations as you get more dynamic. I also like that you have a removable insole in this shoe and the internal construction is finished. I'll take out this insole when I'm deadlifting to get closer to the ground, and I really like the ground feel that you get with this 4mm stack height in this model. Now, when it comes to cross training, the shoe also works, but again, you're gonna have some limitations, as you can already guess. So that said, if you're doing any form of like box jump, jump rope, or things that aren't necessarily so crazy demanding on the upper, this shoe can work. And what I would say is if you crank down this midfoot, what I've learned is that you have a little bit less spillover. But again, as you get more dynamic or as you're doing like heavier sled work, that's where this upper is just gonna start to fall short. And it just kind of is one of those features that it is what it is, because no matter how tight you tighten this midfoot, some movements you're still gonna have this issue just because of how lax and stretchy this knit upper is. Again, if you're that athlete that needs that shoe to lock your foot down for plyos, this might not be your best bet. When it comes to short runs, I actually use this model for one running workout and I didn't really love them, and that's because I just didn't love how the forefoot up here felt. It's a little bit too spacious for my needs if I'm running. Generally, I'll use barefoot shoes for faster pace runs or sprints. And so in that context, I didn't love how loose this was up here. It's just my personal preference. You can technically run in these, but to be quite honest, I think if you're somebody who's looking for that barefoot shoe for running, find something that's a lot more dialed for that performance. This shoe is not going to be your best bet. When it comes to daily wear, I have thoroughly enjoyed this shoe. This model has been wicked comfortable, and it's been one of my favorite shoes to just kind of slip on and go out and about, and then also just wear to upper body sessions or whatever else. So if you're wanting that barefoot shoe for hotter climates and whatnot that works really good with different outfits, with jeans or with shorts, that has a nice simplistic appearance, this model can work. And you can also throw these into the washing machine per Feelgrounds page. I'll probably spot clean and try to get this knit clean without having to throw them in the washer just to play it safe. But that is a perk of this shoe in the context of daily wear as well. Now, when it comes to the breakdown of this shoe, for lifting, I would give them a 7.5 out of 10. They work great, you get good ground feel, but again, you're gonna have some limitations as you get more dynamic with your lifting. For cross training, I'd give the shoe like a strong 7.5 out of 10. Does an okay job, but again, it's gonna have some limitations. For short runs, I would give the shoe a 6 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10. I wouldn't really use them for that. If you like a looser upper and a bit more space in your shoe, you might actually prefer the shoe for running, but it's just not my cup of tea. And then for daily wear, I'd give the shoe an 8.5 or 9 out of 10. I have thoroughly enjoyed that with this shoe, and it's been one of my favorite features with this model. When it comes to the price of the Feelgrounds Move, you can expect to pay $129. Now, I am conflicted on that price because for that price point, I do really love this shoe if you do want that casual barefoot shoe for some general training. But for my athletes, for my powerlifters, for my folks who are dialing in their training for CrossFit and whatnot, I would say go with different options because $129 will be pretty steep for the shoe since it will have some limitations in the gym. All right, so now let's answer the question, who should buy the Feelgrounds Move? Number one, if you're somebody that likes a bit more upper volume in your shoes and a bit more padding in your boot, especially with your barefoot shoes, this can be a great option to look into. It's super comfortable. I really love the padded mesh back here in the heel, and so if you don't love barefoot shoes that have that super thin heel and boot construction, this can be a great option to look into. The second context is if you live in warmer climates, I think this can be a great option, especially for folks who like to go sockless and with socks like me. And I know that's kind of gross, but don't at me here. But if you do live in a warmer climate, I can see this being a really good option. The breathability of the shoe is awesome with this knit, and I like the tinsel lyocell lining in this model because I do think it helps with the smell. This model has yet to stink, and I have other barefoot shoes that haven't necessarily been as easygoing with that. I do have to be a little bit more mindful with my sock use in those, and this model I haven't had to do that with, so I really enjoy that. The third context is if you're somebody that wants that barefoot shoe for walking and casual wear, but then also some general training. If you're just going to the gym and doing some strength work, some cross training here and there, this can be a great option, and there's a good amount of width here through the forefoot and the midfoot, so I do think it will work for most foot anatomies. Now, who shouldn't buy this shoe? If you are a power lifter, CrossFit athlete, or basically anybody who's doing a lot of HIIT and athletic focused workouts or sprints and runs, I would say pass on this shoe. It's going to have some issues and limitations in the gym, as I have hopefully made incredibly clear in this video. The second context where I don't think this shoe makes a lot of sense is if you live in very damp and wet climates, you might not love the knit of this model. It can get wet pretty easily, and it can absorb water and get dirty pretty quickly. So if you are living in that climate, go with a dark colorway or pass on this model and get something that's going to be a little bit more prone to resisting water versus this knit, which can be pretty dang absorbent. And then number three, if you live in cold climates, this model is not going to be your best bet for giving you warmth. You might want to look into other options that have slightly heavier upper constructions. When it comes to sizing and fit in the Feelgrounds Move, I think most folks should be safe going true to size in this model. So I have an E to double E with foot and a normal arch. I typically wear a size 10. And so for relative sizing purposes, I wear a size 10 in Xero Shoes, in Tolos Archetype 2.0, 1.0, etc. And then also in Vivobarefoot, I wear 10s. Granted, in the Primus models, those do run a little bit long. But I would say if you're wearing 10 in any of those Barefoot Shoe Company shoes, I would say go with the same size here. Now, if you're in between sizes, I would say go up versus down if you want a bit more room in your toe box. This model does run a lot more true to size, so you're not going to be swimming in the toe box like Vivobarefoot, but if you do have a wider foot, or if you just want more room to really let those toes do their thing, go up in sizing, because not every size has a half size available. But if you have additional sizing questions on this model, drop a comment down below. So when it comes to the weight, heel toe drop, and insole in the Feelgrounds Move, for my size 10 shoe here, we have a weight of 10.25 ounces. The heel to toe drop in this shoe is 0 millimeters. The stack height of the sole is 4 millimeters, and this model does have a thin foam removable insole, and the internal construction is finished. All right, now let's break down the construction of the Feelgrounds Move. So up here on the toe box, you do have a little bit of an outsole wrap that comes up. It gives you a bit more toe security up here at the end, but again, with this upper construction, it is very stretchy, and there's not really a toe guard on this model. So again, you're not gonna have a ton of toe box of support in this shoe. Looking at the upper in this model, you have a knit upper that runs throughout. There's a lot of stretch to this model, which is awesome for comfort, but again, limitations regarding security. This model is finished with a Tinsole lyocell lining, so it is supposed to help with the overall stink of this shoe long term, which is great because I think that really feeds into the comfort and the breathability of this model, especially for warmer climates or folks out there with sweatier feet like myself on some days. Looking at the midfoot, you have 5 eyelets that go up. I like this midfoot lacing system a lot. So this has a little bit of stretch to it too, and I think that helps contribute to this shoe's comfort. Granted, again, like that is going to limit some of its security, but from a pure comfort standpoint, honestly, this feature is awesome because you can adjust these laces to a bunch of different degrees, and this will wrap around the foot really well. So I do think this shoe should be a good fit for a lot of different foot anatomies regarding thickness, especially through the instep. Looking at the tongue, you have 2 loops here for additional security. These do help with tongue security for the most part, but you can have a little bit of slide in this model at times. You have a padded mesh tongue, and then the laces themselves are pretty standard. Looking at the boot, you have a padding to this, so you can see there's some cushion here. I love this because it really helps give that ankle a nice comfortable fit and feel in the shoe. You have some Feelgrounds branding back here, and you have a mesh material back here on the boot. Looking at the sole construction, you have a full rubber tread patterning. The tread isn't crazy aggressive, so if you want something with a little bit more bite, you might want to find models with lugs, but for the most part, I did find this outsole to be plenty grippy for my needs in the gym. Once again, this model does have a thin foam removable insole, and the internal construction is finished, but if you have additional questions on the shoe's construction, drop a comment down below. All right, guys, that's my review of the Feelgrounds Move. Now, would I get this shoe again? I would. I have really enjoyed the comfort of this model. I think that is the biggest perk of this shoe, and I like that you can also train in them, and they're designed technically for that. Now, I don't love how it does have some performance limitations. So again, if you fall into any of those verticals I've spoken about in this video, pass on this shoe. There are stronger barefoot shoes out there, and I would say save your $129 and go with something that might cost less, but then actually give you more performance in the gym, like the Tolos Arc 2, like the Xero Shoes Prio Neo, or the Zelen. There are a lot of models out there that cost around $100, $120, so a little bit less than this shoe. But all that said, if you have additional questions on the Feelgrounds Move, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, y'all, drop a like on the video, drop a subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next one. Ooh.